Sooner recruiting and football news with Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
Well, it's one of those days where I kind of wish we weren't on YouTube, because then we could open the show with Mr. Jones by Counting Crows, which is, of course, the anthem that we play every time Oklahoma gets a wide receiver commit, and with good reason. Emmett Jones, once again pivotal in landing Oklahoma's latest transfer acquisition, McNeese wide receiver Jer'Michael Carter, who signed with Oklahoma, I am told, within the last hour. So very, very fresh news there. Jer'Michael Carter is a Sooner. Obviously, I think we all understand the primary reason why Jer'Michael Carter is a Sooner, i.e., the Sooners were willing to fork over a large sum of money for his services, a sum larger than the sum at Baylor and Vanderbilt, respectively. But Emmett Jones and the job he did while Jer'Michael Carter was in town on Friday is certainly not to be disregarded. Feels like, Grayson, just from the brief conversations I've had surrounding Jer'Michael Carter before he committed to Oklahoma, and even now in the aftermath, just exchanging texts with a few folks, the feeling is that Jer'Michael Carter's going to be a player for this team this fall. And I hope everyone understands what I mean by that. Like, okay, yes, he's going to be on the roster, but the expectation is Jer'Michael Carter's going to give you something in the realm of production. And so I guess where we start out today, Mr. Singleton, is what do you think is the realistic expectation for a guy like Jer'Michael Carter coming in? What would he have to do this fall to make you feel like, yep, that was worth the investment for Oklahoma?
Well, first of all, Mr. Singleton is my 62-year-old father. I am in no way Mr. Singleton yet. But
Mr. Pickle, perhaps.
You will go with Mr. Singleton. Anyway, look, for a guy that comes in after spring camp in a time of, I'm not going to say desperation, but you're still in need of another wide receiver given the injury to Javonte Gibson. I think if he is just able to come up situationally, that's a big plus. Last season, if you remember, Oklahoma's disastrous on third down. Now, they didn't put themselves in the most advantageous situations to be particularly good at third down. They also stunk in the red zone, too. So if he can be a nice red zone target, and at 6'4" with his frame that he has, he can certainly be that. Think something a la, I don't know, Jaydn Gibson, maybe. Longer receiver, large catch radius, can really provide you some really good upside in those sorts of situations. Also, let's talk about on third down. Can you be a guy that can, if you don't create a whole lot of separation, still go up and make contested catches on third down? Those are the things I'm kind of looking for with Jer'Michael Carter. Sure, he's going to have all of summer and then into fall camp to learn the offense and learn the scheme and whatnot, but he's a little bit behind the eight ball in terms of his everyday connection with John Mateer and maybe to an extent Michael Hawkins, depending on what kind of run he's gotten with the one. So really what I'm looking for here is, can you be a plus situationally? And I think he can do that.
To me, here's the way I look at it. Oklahoma is deep enough and talented enough in the receiver room where you don't necessarily need Jer'Michael Carter to come in and be a 600-yard guy. He doesn't have to do what he did last year at McNeese in order for it to be worth the investment. I think back to the year that Jaydn Gibson had in 2023. This is the parallel that I have drawn. Jaydn Gibson, and this kind of goes to your point about the situational nature of the contributions that you might like to see from a guy like Jer'Michael Carter, but Jaydn Gibson had 14 receptions in 2023. It felt like a lot more than that.
Bingo.
Because at least half of those, 7, 8, maybe even 10 of his receptions throughout the season were significant receptions that either went for touchdowns or went for key first downs or went for big chunk gains. Like, you felt Jaydn Gibson on pretty much every single one of his 14 receptions in 2023. And what that meant was, what that naturally meant was, going into 2024, the expectation was that he was going to take a step up in terms of production and target share and what have you. Now, that didn't happen for obvious reasons. He rips up his knee in fall camp in August, and that's curtains for his 2024 season. But expectations for Jaydn Gibson going into 2024 were quite high because of what he'd done with such limited targets in 2023. Jer'Michael Carter is going to be a 2-year guy at Oklahoma. He has 2 years of eligibility, plus a red shirt if he wants to take it. And so this is not somebody that you need to pop off in 2025, but I think what you look for is somebody that can give you, along the lines of 2023 Jaydn Gibson, 12 to 15 meaningful receptions in 2025. He probably doesn't play 40 snaps a game. He probably doesn't even play 20 snaps a game. I would say this is a guy that's on the field for 10, 12 snaps at most, week in, week out. Unless he shows up and he really is like the clone of Giovanni Gibson, excuse me. If he is everything that Giovanni Gibson was when he got to town in the spring and everybody realized, oh, shoot, this guy might actually be our best receiver, then, okay, maybe you adjust expectations accordingly. But until then, I'm going to move forward under the impression that Jer'Michael Carter, A, sees the field in a substantial capacity for Oklahoma in 2025, and B, doesn't cut significantly into the target share for guys like Giovanni Gibson and Deion Burks and Isaiah Satania, who had a really, really strong spring. But depth at wide receiver, as you learned last year, is something you can never have too much of, especially when you got a quarterback in John Mateer that, yeah, he can create on his own and he's good at it, but he can't do it all himself. Nobody can from that position. You got to get the ball in playmakers' hands and trust them to make plays. And so I like the addition of Jer'Michael Carter. I think it's one that you're going to notice for Oklahoma in 2025. To me, though, it's almost more about what does he become in 2026. Once he's had P4 coaching for a year, once he's had P4 seasoning for a year, once he's picked up via osmosis some additional techniques and tips and tools from working side by side with guys like Burks and Satania and even Jaydn Gibson himself, among others, does Jer'Michael Carter morph into a monster in 2026? It's a 2-year play, folks. I know a lot of times we tend to think about the transfer portal as a market for 1-year rentals, and there's a lot of that. But this is a 2-year play for Oklahoma with Jer'Michael Carter. This show is brought to you today and every day by Dorsey Jones Buick GMC out in El Reno. Family-owned and operated. They pride themselves on having the best service technicians, sales advisors, a low-pressure sales environment, and, of course, one thing I always mention, their half-price oil changes on Saturdays. That's a heck of a deal. So, many a reason to check out Dorsey Jones Buick GMC out in El Reno. We thank them for their partnership in our show every single day. Kyle from Salisaw says, what's up, y'all? Don't mind me just chasing a tornado while driving at work. Hashtag the Oklahoma way. Where is there a tornado right now in our great state?
Yeah, I've got to drive up to Edmond here in an hour, so if there's some up there, please let me know.
Well, seeing as how Kyle is from Salisaw, you would assume that's up in the northeast part of the state. But
who knows?
Yes, please confirm for us.
Yeah. Hopefully there's not one period, but hopefully it's not down here.
There's been so much rain the last couple of days.
Tell me about it.
Mark in Blanchard says, sounds like Carter could be a good replacement and comparison to Nick Anderson. 12 snaps a game is more than we ever got from Anderson. Okay, I was feeling you until the very last portion of that text. Why does everybody remember Nick Anderson for the 2024 version of who he was and not the 2023 version?
And you would think it would be the vice versa.
You would. You certainly would.
Especially game-winning catch against Texas.
Listen, I'm not here for the Nick Anderson slander. Never have been. Nick Anderson is one of those guys that I will relentlessly defend in any and all circumstances because I think he got a raw deal at Oklahoma. But let us not disregard the fact that in 2023, he was the difference maker for Oklahoma at receiver. Cover to cover on that season, he was Oklahoma's most impactful receiver, I believe. Drake Stoops was the most consistent, but Nick Anderson was the most impactful. A ton of big plays, a ton of important plays throughout that campaign from Anderson. David from Norman says, Parker Anderson missed much of the 2022 season also. He missed some of the 2022 season, but it didn't really matter. He was a true freshman who was only barely getting in the rotation anyway. Reformed Homer says, Salisaw is east of Muskogee near the Arkansas line. Maybe Kyle's out in Arkansas.
I think
Maybe the tornado has crossed state lines.
Yeah, I think Kyle said I work in Fort Smith, actually.
Oh, Fort Smith. Okay, there you
go.
go. Okay, so we're safe. We're safe, it would appear. Krabby Sooner says, we all know the real credit goes to Mr. Moneybags. Who is Mr. Moneybags in this context? That's what I'm wondering. Slim Brady adds, if he stays healthy, I'd call it a success. Greg in Muskogee asked, how much eligibility does Carter have left? We just answered that a minute ago. 2 years plus a red shirt if he wants to take it. So here's another interesting conversation piece now that we know officially what the wide receiver room looks like, Grayson. And I've been told the Keon Brown thing isn't 100% dead, but given his academic hurdles that need to be cleared, seems unlikely right now. Now that we know what the receiver room is going to look like, who are your starters? Week 1 of the 2025 season, let's presume that Giovanni Gibson is healthy. Who are the 3 wideouts that Oklahoma's trotting out there in the starting lineup?
Well, okay. In this hypothetical, how has Giovanni Gibson returned to full contact?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
He is 100%.
Okay, cool. So Giovanni Gibson, Deion Burks. Are we going 11 personnel here?
Yes.
Okay.
11 personnel.
Okay.
That's generally how they announce it. And
right.
have in the past at Oklahoma. It's
So,
three receivers, a tight end, a running back.
Yes.
So.
So Giovanni Gibson, Deion Burks, and you know what? Give me Isaiah Satania.
I'd like that. That's actually going to be my answer as well. Because, Burks is one of those guys that can go inside, outside.
Right.
And so what I foresee happening is that it's him and Gibson when healthy at those outside receiver spots, with Satania primarily playing the slot. But then to think about what your, what would you call it in hockey terms? Your second shift, second line? I don't know. Somebody who knows hockey better than I do. When everybody comes off the ice, is it a shift change or a line change? I can't recall. I haven't followed hockey in too long. But that second group of wide receivers that Oklahoma's going to be able to put out there, there's going to be a ton of healthy competition for those spots, perhaps even more so than the starting spots, because Jer'Michael Carter certainly factors into that equation. You have Zion Kearney, Ivan Carrion, and Jacob Jordan, all of whom played a ton of snaps last year, certainly relative to what they probably expected to play as true freshmen. You have another veteran in Keontez Lewis that Oklahoma brought in via the portal. You have 2 true freshmen in Elijah Thomas and Manny Choice that are going to push for snaps. Who am I forgetting? I feel like it's almost impossible because there are 14 scholarship receivers now. Well, obviously Zion Reagan's once he gets back healthy, and he will be healthy by the start of the season. KJ Daniels is still around. You got options, man. Options. And a very good diversity of personnel in that receiver room. A bunch of guys whose skill sets complement each other nicely. It's not as if you have 14 cookie-cutter receivers. And I didn't even bring up Jaydn Gibson in there in that conversation. Thanks for mentioning him, Minnesota Eddie. Yeah, Jaydn Gibson could be a major X factor if he is fully healthy and what he was prior to that injury, which might be asking a lot. But we saw the one thing you can't take away from a guy like Jaydn Gibson is his height. Right? He's always going to be a 50-50 ball mismatch. 50-50 ball is not a 50-50 ball when you're throwing it to Jaydn Gibson. with his size and vertical ability and ball skills. So, man, you just kind of hope there are enough targets to go around to keep everybody satisfied. Keontez Lewis graduates at season's end, as does Deion Burks. Satania's a one-year guy. Giovanni Gibson, he has 2 years, but if all goes well, if all goes according to plan this year, he's probably somebody that has legit NFL draft stock at this point. And so I think especially with that younger group, man, you can't keep everybody around these days in the transfer portal era. So what you'd really love to see is one or two from that younger coalition emerge as the clear superior options to their peers.
Which basically brings us back in this circle to Jer'Michael Carter. And how does his addition affect the ascent of the two young guys, particularly Elijah Thomas and Manny Choice? Mm-hmm. Because even if you add another receiver and Giovanni Gibson doesn't go down, Elijah Thomas and Manny Choice are still in the plans. Now that we expect Jer'Michael Carter to actually be a guy who can contribute, the snaps and the targets and the routes run are taken away from somebody. So when at the end of what you just said, you go to, you're not going to be able to keep all the young guys around. Mm-hmm. That's part of the delicate balance now that they're going to have to play in. We've got two, not just freshman receivers, but capable freshman receivers whose bodies look like they're ready for Power 4 football. And you're not just going to stash them on the sideline and them be totally happy about it. Maybe they'll be understanding. Maybe they'll even come back. But they're not going to be totally happy about that. And that only goes so far.
Thank you, Matt from Greenwood. Matt, in the last few days, you've said you're from Greenwood. You've said you're from Vian. You've said you're from Fort Smith. Where are you from, Matt? Regardless, thank you for bringing Josiah Martin to my attention. That was one name I neglected to mention as well. Josiah Martin is going to be in the picture and probably getting snaps to some degree in that wide receiver rotation. All right, Jer'Michael Carter officially on board. We got some tangible portal news today. How about that? Great way to start off Locked In. That scoop dropping about 20 minutes before we went on air. So that is fresh. Jer'Michael Carter, the latest addition to Oklahoma's receiver room. Now that he is officially in the boat, you can call it a wrap on roster additions for the month of April, and we should have a nice little healthy battle on our hands for KREF Recruiter of the Month. We will award the title for the month of April coming up next via your input on the YouTube chat and on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line 405-651-3439. We present to you the final two candidates for the April KREF Recruiter of the Month Award. Coming up next, you're listening to the Home of Sooner Fans.
At Confidence Ford of Norman, we believe in living up to our name. Our commitment to confidence is in everything we do. Whether you're searching for the perfect vehicle from our extensive selection of new Ford models or pre-owned cars, our dedicated team will help you every step of the way. Because with us, you're family. We're conveniently located at 825 North Interstate Drive. Confidence Ford of Norman, a Cavender Auto family dealership where confidence is Cavender.
Oklahoma DRS helps job seekers with disabilities become taxpayers.
Their whole thing is to help people with disabilities go back to work.
They knew that I would be successful if I did not give up.
They have given me the power and confidence to face any challenge.
I'm just glad that, DRS was there. Empower yourself. Talk to DRS Vocational Rehabilitation.
Or services for the blind today.
OKDRS.gov. 800-487-4042.
At Meals on Wheels of Norman, we deliver more than just meals. We deliver connection, compassion, and care to homebound seniors right here in our community. But we need your help. Volunteer drivers are the heart of what we do, and just a little of your time can make a big impact. Join our team, make a difference. Visit millsonwheelsnorman.com or contact us at 405-321-7272 to sign up as a volunteer and start serving smiles today.
Childhood cancer is devastating, but childhood cancer is beatable with St. Jude.
I
I knew that St. Jude was a children's hospital, that no one ever received a bill from St. Jude, but I in no way understood how completely they take care of their patients and their families. To any of the donors, I would say bless you and thank you, because without the donors, St. Jude wouldn't be here.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Being blind doesn't always look how others may think.
Retinitis pigmentosa aimed to overwhelm my family.
It tried to cut me down. I know where to find support and where I can be seen.
Innovative research, educational resources, supportive community.
The Foundation Fighting Blindness is leading the charge on treatments and cures for blinding diseases. Donate today at fightingblindness.org.
A public service message from the Foundation Fighting Blindness.
In Iraq, our truck hit a roadside bomb. I had about 16 surgeries on my hand so that I could regain function. And when I came home, I needed a new roof due to a storm. And I was about to lose homeowners insurance as well. I applied for Operation Homefront Critical Financial Assistance Program. And it's good to know that when we come home, there are people who are there that care about us. Operation Homefront, they've really been a blessing.
Visit operationhomefront.org to learn more.
Hey guys, it's Chris Blank. Have you been involved in an auto accident? If so, it's time to contact the OKC Car Crash Clinic of Dr. Martin Lopez. He is a board-certified and fellowship MD with unparalleled training and experience. Dr. Lopez works with a great team of healthcare professionals and attorneys to help you achieve the best physical and financial recovery. Contact Dr. Lopez at 405-86-CRASH or at okccrash.com. And don't forget, listen every week to The Blank Show for the Impact Player of the Game, brought to you by Dr. Martin Lopez.
Whether you're celebrating a special occasion, desire a great postgame, or after-work dining experience, the Ranch Steakhouse is the winning choice. At Ranch Steakhouse, we're grilling up the best USDA prime steaks in Oklahoma. Juicy, flavorful, and cooked to perfection. Pair that with an unbeatable atmosphere, a killer drink selection, and a wine list of over 400 personally curated bottles. Whether you're toasting the game or winding down after a big day, Ranch Steakhouse is where champions eat.
All right, folks. It's time to compare resumes. You have two finalists for KREF Recruiter of the Month here in the month of April. Your finalists are OU head men's basketball coach Porter Moser, who, via the transfer portal, has added the services of former Notre Dame forward Tate Davis, former Kansas State and Miami guard Nijel, former St. Joseph's guard Xzayvier Brown, and his father, or his stepfather, I should say, Justin Scott, who will serve as an assistant coach, and former McDonald's All-American and Alabama transfer Derrion Reid. That is what Porter Moser's resume in the month of April looks like. Your other finalist, Oklahoma football general manager Jim Nagy, who, via the program's NIL offerings, spearheaded their pursuit, successful pursuit, mind you, of Cal transfer running back Jaydn, Stanford offensive lineman Jake Maikkula, most recently McNeese wide receiver Jer'Michael Carter, UTSA kicker Tate, Sandell, and, let's not forget Utah State transfer defensive tackle Ricky Lolohea. Mr. Singleton, who does your vote go to between the two finalists?
Porter Moser, man. Porter Moser.
That seems to be the prevailing sentiment on the text line as well.
It seems to be pretty much a consensus on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Here's what's so impressive about Porter Moser. Number one, the team wasn't very inspiring during the SEC portion of the regular season. One and done in the NCAA tournament. And we had a conversation with our excellent OU insider reporter Brody Lusk, and he literally said the one thing that this Oklahoma team has to recruit to back in January is playing time. So you're working with a limited arsenal in terms of to pull players. And he just pulled off one hell of a transfer portal haul. I mean, you're excited about next season now. And I'm pretty sure all of you out there listening to us now are excited for next season now because of what he pulled off. And these aren't just guys that were just great mid-major guys. These are names that we know. Tay Davis is a name that we know. Nigel Pack is a name that we know, partly because he's been around for damn near a decade. But Derrion Reid, former McDonald's All-American, name that we know. So he was able to pull that off against all odds and working with not as much as some of the other teams that were targeting some of these guys were working with. So he has done more with less, and he's my vote. Porter Moser, Recruiter of the Month.
David from Norman on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, 405-651-3439, says, Parker, you can't give Jim Nagy credit for every single football recruit. Okay, you're right, but it is also true that you can't give Porter Moser all the credit for every single basketball recruit. It's an inexact science. You're looking at the figure that's primarily responsible. Not solely responsible, but primarily responsible. They've kind of got their face attached to everything in that regard.
But to that point, I would, and David, I get where you're coming from, and to that point, I would say, I guess he didn't do this all in the month, but if we had an overarching transfer portal kind of thing, I think Emmett Jones' name should be up in there. I know, again, it didn't all happen in April, but bringing in all the wide receivers he did and then pulling off the Jer'Michael Carter thing in a time of need is something that if we want to specify it a little more, he could be involved with.
A 405 listener says, Patty Gasso for putting together Team USA. No one accumulated more talent quicker. 501 listener says, add Trey Young to Porter Moser. Yeah, we might have to give Trey Young, regardless of whether we ultimately land on Porter or Jim Nagy, Trey Young does get an honorary KREF Recruiter of the Month distinction. There's been a Trey Young effect.
Yes.
And it's been conspicuous. Michael in Marlow says, if Nagy gets credit, so do the fans. We are providing the NIL funds for Nagy to operate. Okay, yes, also true. On the whole, the money that's being crowdsourced for NIL is still drastically outpaced by the NIL money that's being raised via major donors. But yes, you certainly get a little bit of credit, just as Emmett Jones gets some credit for the addition of Jer'Michael Carter, and Bill Bedenbaugh gets some credit for the addition of Jake Maikkula. All of that is true, but the guy whose face is most conspicuously attached to Oklahoma's portal recruiting efforts, that would be Jim Nagy. And also, let's not sit here and act like Jaydn happened for any other reason besides Jim Nagy's connections. Jim Nagy made that one happen, and everybody knew it in the moment. Everybody could see it. Now, 405 listeners, it won't be Joe John Finley, that's for sure.
Come on, leave the man alone.
The shade, the strays that Joe John Finley catches from the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line.
Y'all doing that. Y'all going after that man, for real.
Eric the Red says, I say Porter. Nagy was expected to do those kinds of things. Porter's transfers were shocking / unexpected. Very happy for him and rooting for him to succeed. And, you don't necessarily want to – I shouldn't say you don't want to. There are some people that are not going to want to look at it relative to the backdrop as opposed to just in isolation, absolute value, that type of thing. But certainly relative to what we'd become accustomed to from this Oklahoma basketball program in the transfer portal cycles of past years, this haul drastically outpaces any that Porter Moser and the program had ever put together.
Oh, no doubt. So are you saying that's your vote?
I mean, we started calling him Porter Moser when he landed the Groves brothers.
Ugh.
You remember those guys?
Yeah, I remember the Groves. I remember those.
Yeah. Those were two guys that I think they went for like 38 and 33 or something like that in that NCAA tournament game in March of 2021 against Kansas. Eastern Washington wound up losing that game, but they both went off. And to this day, I cannot figure out how that game happened.
Nope.
Because they got to Oklahoma and they weren't scrubs, but they certainly weren't impact players.
I can better explain who was the kid from Oakland that looks like a character from The Incredibles.
Oh, Jack Golke.
Jack Golke. I can much better explain the Jack Golke game than I can both of the Groves brothers dropping 30 in the same game.
Gunny of Stutzman Army. Jim Nagy to the rescue. Jim Nagy to the rescue. Yep. We got to have Steely perform the parody version of that song. Got to put together a band. I'll play the bass. Jesse Crittenden can handle lead guitar. We just need a drummer. As soon as we find somebody that can drum, we can have Steely record Jim Nagy to the rescue. A 405 listener says, I find it funny that signing a receiver that had 37 catches at McNeese State, oh, here we go, as some sort of exceptional achievement. To think this guy will have a significant impact is a joke. Look at what we got out of transfers from Missouri, Hester, and Arizona State, Bunkley Shelton. Minimal impact from guys that were at least Power 5. Okay, we can look at the bad. Do you want to look at the good? Do we recall how many catches Andrell Anthony had at Michigan the year before transferring to Oklahoma? I'll tell you the answer. 1. He had 1 catch the entire 2022 season at Michigan. Gets to Oklahoma, and if not for that torn ACL midseason, that's a guy that probably would have gone for 1,000 yards. He was on pace for it.
Yeah, he was doing work.
And so, look, you never know what you're going to get in the portal. And I don't think we're treating Jer'Michael Carter's addition as some sort of, to use your phrase there, exceptional achievement.
I was going to say, who said that?
Yeah, I said, look, I would be satisfied if Jer'Michael Carter caught 12 to 15 passes this fall. Are you going to beef with that?
And I said he's going to be a guy that could benefit you situationally.
He had 37 catches at McNeese State. Yes. He was also a guy that many other Power 4 programs wanted. Obviously, Baylor and Vanderbilt were the 2 contenders at the end alongside OU because of what they were willing to offer monetarily. But Utah was involved. Tennessee was involved. Arkansas tried to get involved at the end. It wasn't as if Oklahoma was just taking this guy off the street. Otherwise, he was going to hang around at McNeese and keep playing FCS ball. No, this is a guy that, as judged by many, many personnel workers, coaches, general managers across college football, this is a guy that was ready for an upgrade. Jer'Michael Carter.
Kyle from Salazar. That texter is a hoe and needs to simmer down.
I gotta figure out. I said personnel workers. I wasn't really sure how to. It sounds redundant when you say personnel. It is redundant. What do you call the plural of people who work in college football personnel? I'm gonna have to noodle on that. Come up with a more concise way to put that. I can't say personnel. That's just confusing. Anyway, yeah. If Jer'Michael Carter catches 15 passes, I think that's worth the investment for Oklahoma at this point. I think you got out of him what you needed to get out of him. If he winds up being a starter, great. If he winds up never doing much of anything, then okay. Then toss him in the basket alongside J.J. Hester and L.V. Bunkley Shelton if you really want to. But you don't bring Jer'Michael Carter in with the expectation that he's going to be a stud or that he's going to be a starter. I think you bring him in with the expectation that he's going to contribute situationally and catch 10, 15, 20 passes over the course of the season, and that's probably good enough. It's good enough for me. I don't know if it's good enough for you. It's certainly good enough for me.
Les Wilson in our YouTube chat. Staffing personnel?
Yeah, okay, personnel staffers. That's probably what I was looking for. Sometimes my thoughts are a lot easier to articulate with my fingers on a keyboard than they are in my brain, which probably isn't a great sign for my future in talk radio, but I think we do okay here on this show. Lee in Dallas says, let's not forget, Matthew Golden had 38 catches and 404 yards at Houston before transferring to Texas for 1 year. Now he's a first-round pick. Yes,
fair point.
Great point. 719 listener says, personnel is both plural and singular. What would be this? I'm trying to think of a context in which I would use
like
persons.
Somebody's personnel.
But even that is referring to people in the plural.
But I guess it's like a singular grouping, maybe?
Perhaps. I don't know. We're getting too deep into the rabbit hole of English grammar. We all made it through third grade, folks. We don't have to dwell on the minutia, as it were. Jeff from OKC says, this might be a stupid question, but with new people in Nagy's office doing scouting work, does that take some off the plate of the position coach as recruiters? Yes, it certainly does. And with as much as those coaches have on their plates these days, that is a welcome change in the Switzer Center.
I mean, can you imagine just going to so not to cut you off?
No, you're good.
But can you imagine if you're a coach not having to find the talent, but just go get the talent to come to you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a huge relief.
Yeah, you don't have to be responsible for going to dig up Wyatt Gilmore in Rogers, Minnesota, or Phil Picciotti in Percasey, Pennsylvania. Now, I mentioned Phil Piccioti's name, which means we'll have a Doug and Norman text within 2 minutes. But Kyle from Sallisaw says, people expect every single transfer portal edition to be all SEC, SMH. Yes, it feels like there are some people that legitimately expect that. It's okay not to have that expectation. It's okay to go spend a little money, if you got it, for a portal receiver that if he ends up with 250 receiving yards on the season, he'll have done some good for your program. Justin, formerly Yoda, on the text line, says, Parker, why do you ignore my text? I'm sorry, Justin, formerly Yoda. I'm not trying to. It's not intentional.
Why is he not Yoda anymore?
He didn't want to be Yoda anymore.
Oh.
He renounced his claim on the Yoda moniker. He says, I am on my ship with Moses and was told to pick guys up for the flood to continue to give us great Sooner talk because God is a Sooner. The theological validity of that text is questionable, but appreciate the sentiment. Justin, formerly Yoda. I'm glad that if it came to it, you would choose to save us on your ark.
Michael and Marlo, most of us went to high school in Oklahoma. I'm not sure we should be telling you how to grammar. I love that he used grammar as a verb as well.
Mark from Enid says, what teams again were we up against for Jer'Michael Carter? I missed the announcement. We got him. So Tennessee, Arkansas, and Utah were all involved, but the other two finalists when it came down to it were Baylor and Vanderbilt. But that's a battle that I think absent a ridiculous monetary offer, you expect Oklahoma to win, and that is a battle that Oklahoma did win. All right, folks, one more segment of Locked In coming up next. Stay at it on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line 405-651-3439. Always appreciate your interaction, and there's always quite a bit of it throughout the show. We love chatting with you guys on the text line all throughout the program. Keep it here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans, and we'll be right back.
A true Sooner fan wouldn't be caught dead without the KREF app. Join the Army. Get the app. Tell your friends. This is the Ref, where diehard Sooner fans listen.
Big wins are blooming across Riverwind Casino. And the jackpots have never been sweeter.
Go all in on your favorite table games.
Hedge your bets on the biggest wins and unbeatable entertainment.
Use your wild card for the best perks and the top rewards.
And play for your share of the $100,000 Lucky May Days giveaway. Win with the best.
And we'll see you at Riverwind.
For the professional, it's not enough to just possess knowledge. That's why at GMC, we seek to refine it, to wield its power, to redefine its boundaries, while pushing the limits. And we put this knowledge to the test in every GMC Sierra by engineering each one to outperform your expectations. So you know you're getting precision and durability when you need it most. And that's what makes the GMC Sierra the truck worth knowing. We are professional grade. See your Oklahoma GMC dealers.
OU softball, baseball, and gymnastics offer great opportunities for you to get out for some exciting action and support your Sooners. Going to an OU event or game? Balfour of Norman on Campus Corner invites you to stop by and get some new OU gear. Whether it's a softball jersey with your favorite player or just a new lucky shirt or hat to wear to the game, Balfour has everything you need to be in style and showing your colors. Cheer for the Sooners in the best and newest styles in Sooner sportswear. Locally owned for more than 45 years, Balfour continues to be Sooner fans' favorite OU store. and has everything you need. Balfour has the latest styles and fashion trends for men, women, and children. You can find something for every Sooner fan. When it comes to hats, they have you covered with more than 100 styles to choose from. Even OU socks, so you're literally covered from head to toe. Graduation is right around the corner. They have OU diploma frames in stock. Or you can always get a gift card so they can choose the perfect gift for themselves. Come see us on the corner or shop online at crimsonproud.com, where you will find everything Sooner.
Hey, Mike Steely here for my good friends at Cavens Group. Spring temperatures are here and the threat of severe storms loom. Are you ready? Cavens can help you with water intrusion and inspections for mold. Also spring cleanup and yard cleanup with their 12-foot dumpsters. Don't wait for the water to expose your problems. Get ahead of it today with Cavens Group Spring Checkup. Call them today at 405-573-3048 or visit cavensgroup.com.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Kelly Clarkson, and as the daughter of a school teacher, I know just how important education is. No matter how old you are or your situation, continuing to learn will enrich your life and help remove barriers you didn't even know were there. So much opportunity, y'all. Whether it's a foreign language, history, or a different way to look at things, take some time each day to learn something new. This message is courtesy of the United States Air Force.
Needing some electrical upgrades around your house? Don't do it yourself. Instead, trust the experts at Wade Electric. Wade Electric has been family owned and operated for over 50 years and is committed to the highest level of service and safety. Whether it's a remodel or new construction, our qualified installers can help. Service changes, LED lights, security or ambiance lighting, electric car chargers, or backup generators, we do it all. Leave it to the experts at Wade Electric. Call 405-329-1940 to speak with one of our trusted professionals today.
Get on board. The water is open. It's time to go boating and fishing and leave stress in our wake. Feel the wind as we ride and a fish on the line. Reel in our first catch and feel the sun at our backs. It's get out on the water season. It's time to get on board. Find out where to get on board near you. Visit Take Me Fishing and Discover Boating to learn more. And please recreate responsibly. Get on board. Get on board.
You know it's a low-key banger, Grayson?
Give it to me.
I was reminded of this over the weekend. Last weekend, I guess. Easter weekend. Wii Sports Resort.
Oh,
Wii Sports Resort is awesome.
Oh, talk to me now. Talk to me. Yes.
Dude, you know, okay, so we're back at my parents' house in Nebraska, and all four of us siblings are there, which is a rarity. You know, only really happens at holidays, and so
pretty much,
you know, you're hanging around against all of your siblings, and we all grew up together, right? You start to get nostalgic for the stuff that you did growing up. So we went and blew the dust off the Wii and popped in Wii Sports Resort. Man, that was so much fun.
What'd y'all play?
We played. Let me think. I played quite a bit of golf and frisbee golf. We did basketball. That island flyover game.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fun. I'm trying to think, was there anything else? I don't know, man. Felt like we didn't even get nearly as deep into that game over the course of Easter weekend as I wanted to. It was very nostalgic and very enjoyable.
That.
I might have to get a Wii now.
See,
I have to go hit Amazon Renewed.
See, I don't know if I'll ever get a Wii. Also, I just bought a PlayStation 2, but...
You bought a PlayStation 2?
No, TOO.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
No.
I was like,
no.
Man, that's another...
I wonder, you know, speaking of that, I wonder if my grandma still has the old PS2 that I used to play when I went to her house when I was like 11.
Oh, man, that was the stuff growing up. Started out on the GameCube, which I still have.
See, I never owned a GameCube.
Morphed over to the PS2 for a little while.
Did you ever have a PSP?
No, never did.
Did you ever have a Nintendo DS?
Never owned a Nintendo DS.
Oh, no. So you never played Mario Kart on the DS?
No.
Oh, okay. Now
Mario Kart on the Wii, yes.
I'm calling into question your childhood.
Oh, man. Hey, we all led different lives. Unique lives. Enjoyable lives for the most part, at least in my case. I had a pretty solid childhood. A 307 listener says, speak for yourself, Parker. There's a lot of listeners here that didn't get past third grade. Well, I hope not. That listener's up in Wyoming. Maybe the schooling system's a little bit different in Wyoming. Who's to say? Only ever been there once. Puerto Rican Sooner says, I hit absolute dingers on the Wii.
Mm-hmm.
I don't doubt it. Wii Sports was the OG, but for my money, Wii Sports Resort, so much more fun. Doug from Norman, there it is. He says, why are you blaspheming me? I'm trying to be good, but it's hard to jump up and down when we are loading up the roster with a bunch of FCS and D2 transfers. I mean, look, Doug, again, I don't think anybody's jumping up and down over the addition of Jer'Michael Carter. He's a guy that adds value, as most of OU's transfer additions this offseason have. There are a few, they're like, okay, does that guy ever really do anything at OU? It's fair to wonder that about a few of the transfer pickups. But for the most part, are you bringing a guy like Jaydn, for instance? Yes, there have been FCS and D2 transfers, but let's not act like that's all it's been. Jaydn and John Mateer were two of the most ballyhooed additions in the entire transfer portal cycle, collectively, spanning both winter and spring.
Mm-hmm.
The listener in the 405 says, Parker, why are you ignoring my texts? I'm sorry, Dr. Trey. I don't mean to ignore your texts either. We get a lot of them on the show every day. It's a blessing and a curse. A ton of active listeners to this show every single day, but that means we can't hear from everybody. Zero Star Joe says, Joe John's recruiting ability never made it out of third grade. Here we go.
Leave that man alone. Y'all cracking me up, honestly.
On the topic of basketball, 405 listener asks, is Porter done in the portal, or do you expect 1 to 2 depth pieces still? Well, let me tell you, Brody Lusk over at OUinsider.com is the guy that you're going to want to keep up to speed with on all things basketball. He would know better than anyone. I expect at least one more addition because Oklahoma needs one. The roster is not full. I can't recall whether they are 1 spot or 2 spots away from being full, but it's not a full roster yet. So, yes, Oklahoma still has a couple additional pickups to make. Looking good, though. Looking like a tournament team heading into next season. Hey, I don't mean to get off topic here, but we have had a ton of texts about it over the last 3 hours, and I have yet to address it, but I will go ahead and address it now because I know that there are a lot of you that listen to this show that subscribe to OUinsider.com, of which I am obviously the co-publisher, and that's where all our subscribers get all of the juicy recruiting and team information that we're not even authorized to say on the radio in some cases. But it was announced right at noon today that Rivals, which is the parent network of OUinsider.com, is merging with On3. Rivals and On3, which are two of the big three in the college football and recruiting coverage space, along with 24/7 Sports, they are merging. I will be completely forthright. I had no knowledge that this was coming whatsoever. Publishers were not informed. I don't know how high up the NDAs went, because there are always NDAs when you're dealing with this type of thing.
Yep.
Publishers were not informed. This was a surprise to all of us at Rivals. Sounds like it was a surprise to people on the On3 side as well. Sounds like it was a deal that was struck at the absolute highest levels, and there was just absolutely no heads up given to the people that are doing the day-to-day reporting on the respective sites and networks. But, yeah, apparently it's happening. What it means, what it entails, I don't know yet. I have been on the radio since literally the exact minute that this was announced. Worst timing imaginable. So I have to make some calls this afternoon and figure out what the path forward looks like as far as migration and the all of the things that go into a merger, especially one of this size. I don't know what it means for OUinsider.com, which is independent and not owned by Yahoo Sports or the Rivals Network. It is we have a contract with Yahoo Sports, but they do not own OUinsider.com. So there's a lot that I'm unsure about. There's no doubt a lot that y'all are unsure about. We're going to be doing our regular OU Insider live stream tonight at 8:30 p.m. on YouTube. So if you subscribe to OU Insider on YouTube and you're curious about what the future looks like for Rivals and On3 in conjunction with one another and all the team sites that those two networks currently syndicate, I imagine we will have more details at that point. I know virtually nothing right now beyond what has already been made publicly known by some of the key figures, which obviously includes the godfather of the entire industry, Shannon Terry, who built Rivals, sold it, built 24/7, sold it, and then built On3, and is now acquiring his original brand once again. He put this out on Twitter earlier today. Before football season, we should be fully integrated. It is status quo for a few weeks. Rivals will become the home for recruiting and high school sports, with all On3 recruiting assets and talents moving under the Rivals brand. On3 will focus exclusively on college sports, the transfer portal, NIL, and data services. So that's kind of your 30,000-foot view of what's going to be changing, I suppose. More specifically, I don't really know. Again, hopefully I have more answers tonight. Hopefully I have more answers tomorrow on how this is all going down and what it means for the people that work within the network as opposed to just the brands themselves. Let's wrap up with a few texts on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, 405-651-3439.
You made that sound like the Luka trade almost. Just things happening and nobody knowing about them.
Well, doesn't sound like anybody that's like, boots on the ground doing reporting work knew that this was coming. This was a deal that was brokered amongst the suits, as far as I'm aware. But the Luka trade was a disaster. I don't think this will be a disaster.
I'm not talking about the aftermath. I'm talking about its birth.
There are some very capable people involved with all of this. None more so than, of course, Shannon Terry, who pretty much built the entire industry that I work in. On the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, 405-651-3439. Kyle from Salisaw says, the text line today is exactly why no matter what the organization does to bolster the roster, it will never be enough for Sooner fans. I know, man. Like, imagine if you're Jim Nagy and you spend 12 hours a day listening to the ref, which I hope for his own sake he doesn't do. He's got more important things to deal with. But, like, you go land Jaydn Ott, and then 2 weeks later, you sign a transfer wide receiver from McNeese, and you got people grumbling about, here come more FCS D2 transfers. Unserious. Like, dang, I've been here for 2 months. Is this what I got to do to keep people happy? Every single transfer I have to take have to be an All-American candidate?
Forget keeping people happy. It seems like they never were happy for longer than 2 minutes in the first place.
That's probably also true. There's some lingering bitterness and resentment over what happened in 2024, and that's quite understandable. I will not try to talk anyone out of that. 5-star Randy says, do tall receivers help mitigate some of the demand on the tight end position to catch passes in the short passing game? Yeah, look, I don't think that Oklahoma is going to be able to lean on the tight end a ton in 2025. Maybe somebody breaks out in fall camp. Maybe. But that doesn't seem like the strongest of rooms right now. And given Ben Arbuckle's proclamation on the day he took the job that personnel was going to dictate scheme, when you look at what OU does have at receiver versus what they don't have at tight end, you're probably looking at quite a bit of 10 and 20 personnel. 2-back sets, that could become a regular thing. The Sooners have enough weapons to do it, and you saw quite a bit of 2-back action last year. Granted, that was the Seth Luttrell, Joe John Finley year, but you got the weaponry in the backfield to roll out some 2-back sets between guys like Taylor Tatum and Javonte Barnes. Obviously, you got Jaydn Ott right there, and then Xzayvier Robinson. Who knows? Maybe Torrey Blaylock finds his way on the field. Heard he had a good spring. good enough to work his way into the rotation? That might be a stretch, but seems like there's some promise there. Michael in Marlowe adds, between both portal cycles this offseason, how many have been P5 and how many have been G5 FCS? I believe, and don't quote me on this, I believe, off the top of my head, 11 of the 14 transfers that Oklahoma acquired in the winter window were G5 FCS. And so here in this spring window, who was Power 5, who wasn't? I guess Maikkula and Ott, 2 of the 5, would have been, well, P4, not P5. Then the other 3 came from the G5 FCS ranks. So, yeah, numbers-wise, lean more toward G5 FCS, but the way it is these days, you got a lot of guys that go to that level and ball out and prove they can upgrade, and they do, whether at Oklahoma or elsewhere. All right, folks, that's a wrap for today's installment of Locked In. For Grayson Singleton, I'm Parker Thune. Come back with us tomorrow, and we'll dive back in same time, same place, here on The Ref. Coming up next, it's The Rush with Teddy Lehman and Tyler McCombs.